Hello, you're watching the Cromo Paleo show, and in today's episode, I thought we'd try and answer a never before asked question. What did anomalocaris taste like? So first off, what the heck is anomalocaris? Anomalocaris lived way back in the Cambrian period and was the largest organism of that time. This 1 meter long Cambrian giant could have been the first apex predator to stalk the earth, feeding on small crustaceans that scurried around the ocean floor, such as trilobites. You know what, that's what we're going to do. Every episode where I feature a fossil, I'll put it on the desk and we'll have a small collection building up on the desk for a little bit of decoration. That's a badass idea. Back to the video. However, a lot of people speculate that it never fed on trilobites and instead focused its attention on more soft-bodied animals. It was not really known what group anomalocaris belonged to until a recent study showed that they are related to arthropods, but they are in a different group, which means millions of years ago they stemmed off from the main line of arthropods, making them stem arthropods. Anomalocaris also had ridiculously good eyesight for its time. Not only did they have a 360-degree field of view, the surface of the eye was also covered with 16,000 tiny lenses, which gave the creature a clear view underwater. Now that we've covered the facts, let's get to the opinions. So if anomalocaris was closely related to living arthropods, one can imagine a sort of crab, lobster, maybe shrimp-like taste. One of anomalocaris' closest living relatives, the mantis shrimp, has a taste said to be very similar to lobster. Using this method, we could determine that anomalocaris would basically have an iconic crustacean taste. But judging by the fact that anomalocaris was in its own group, it would definitely have its own unique taste. But I think meat that's 500 million years old would definitely have a unique taste, for lack of a better term. I wasn't satisfied with this answer, so I dug deeper and did my own estimations. Looking at anomalocaris, it certainly doesn't look like anything we have alive today. But by comparing some of anomalocaris' body parts' functions and comparing them to living animals, we may be able to determine a taste, maybe even a texture. Parts of crustaceans that twist and move a lot, such as a lobster's tail, tends to have a more fibrous meat, kind of like a piece of chicken that's hard to chew. Looking at anomalocaris' own means of locomotion, more specifically the flapping of the fin-like lobes on the sides of the body, we could determine a sort of chewy texture from the meat of those parts. As for the taste, well, I can imagine the lobes have a very light taste, kind of like a lobster's tail. Personally, I prefer the claws of a lobster, just because they're more sweet. Which brings me to my next point, anomalocaris' Appendages of Doom. So if we were to take these feeding appendages of anomalocaris and comparing them to lobster's claws, we should be able to see a taste pattern. The muscles in lobster's claws are used less than the tail, giving them a more tender and sweet meat. If anomalocaris was an apex predator, for the record I think it was, then it would only be using these arms on occasion. When a lobster feeds on the carcass of an animal, it has to work the meat with its claws, kind of like our teeth. It has a cutting claw, kind of like our incisors, and a crushing claw, kind of like our molars. When anomalocaris would feed on a trilobite, for example, it's not going to need crushing claws. It's just going to need grasping arms that can pass the animal up to the mouth and feed on the soft underside. Therefore, the arms of anomalocaris is not going to be used as frequently or as intensely as lobster's claws. So perhaps anomalocaris' appendages would be even more flavoursome and sweet than lobster's claws. But we'll never know. A recurring theme I've seen in crustacean meat is that the larger the animal, the sweeter the meat. Take the Japanese spider crab for example. This is the largest crustacean on Earth. It's said to have a very sweet taste. Take the coconut crab, the largest land invertebrate. It's said to have a taste halfway between crab and lobster. So judging by anomalocaris' size, we can guesstimate that it would have a very sweet taste. And a sweet taste. You might be wondering about the meat from anomalocaris' body. There's parts of lobsters' bodies you can eat, but there are also parts that you can't eat, making lobster's body less popular than the other more edible parts. And since we have no idea what's inside anomalocaris' body, we're going to skip this part. A lot of reconstructions show anomalocaris with its fin lobes projected in the air, and looking at the fossil they certainly look different from the ones that propel the animal forward. Perhaps these acted like rudders, either turning the animal or pivoting the animal up and down in the water. Let's assume they were. In that case, they would hardly move at all. Using the same idea as the lobster's claws, we can kinda guess the meat from the tail lobes of anomalocaris would be packed with flavour, perhaps even a delicacy. And the meat from the tail lobes would also have a very tender texture. But again, this is all guesswork. In conclusion, by looking at anomalocaris and comparing it to living animals, we can guess that the fin-like lobes on the sides of the body would have a very plain taste with a chewy texture due to the constant movement. The feeding appendages that stick out of the head from anomalocaris would have a very sweet taste with a tender texture due to their lack of use. The tail lobes would be very sweet and tender, assuming they never moved. But keep in mind these could be very inaccurate. Anomalocaris has been dead for about 400 million years. Even though it would have its own taste, I think it would be delicious. And if it was still around today, I think we'd still be fishing for it, if we haven't already fished them to extinction. Tell me what you think. I'd love to hear your suggestions. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one. We may be able to determine. Oh, that's so hard to say. Take the crap. Well, like an imagine. Oh god. 60-degree view. Oh god. 16. Oh god. Close related. Oh god. Okay. Ironic. Oh god. Oh my god! Look at the size of this damn script. How am I meant to memorize that? The mantis shrimp. My shrimp. The mantis shrimp. The mantis shrimp has a. Oh god, I looked at the laptop. Don't do that. Ah! You might be wondering about the body of Anomalocaris. It might be. Why can I not remember that? With a tender texture. God with a tender texture. God I said it again. Hey!